Hey, quick heads up before we get rolling. If you're building something big and need a boost, papernapkinwisdom.com has a stack of free tools ready for you. Strategy, mindset, leadership, all there, totally free. You can even hit the link in bio on social media, and let's level up.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 279. If you're a leader, entrepreneur, or difference maker, you already know there are moments when doing more doesn't create more. And as you listen today, you might begin to notice how a simple shift in what you design into your day can unlock clearer thinking, better decisions, and steadier momentum. Our guest is Stephen Langer, founder and CEO of Well by Design. Stephen spent years helping teams and executives build cultures that support performance without the performative hustle. He blends leadership science with practical tools you can use in minutes. And as you hear his stories, you might find yourself recalling those times when your best ideas arrived not from pushing harder, but from changing how you operate. And you can decide, even now, to notice where that could fit for you. Today, we'll explore a built-in feature of human performance that most of us ignore until it's too late. It costs nothing, takes less time than you think, and when you use it on purpose, meetings get shorter, creativity returns, and pressure feels lighter. So, whether you're listening on your commute or taking a quiet moment between commitments, choose one place in your day today to test what you're about to learn. Then share your takeaway with our community. You can snap your own napkin and tag #PaperNapkinWisdom. So, let's dive in with Stephen Langer. Stephen, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I'm excited to have our conversation today.
Thanks, Govind. It's great to be here.
Well, Stephen, I said this offline before we began, but you have a unique distinction in Paper Napkin Wisdom lore. You are the only person in the history of Paper Napkin Wisdom to hand draw the Paper Napkin Wisdom logo in the corner of their napkin. And for that, I'm really grateful. I think that's amazing. So that's like throwing down the gauntlet to all future guests to see if they can do that too. So well
and
done.
I have zero artistic ability, so don't hold that against me. But yeah,
no, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's the best hand drawing by a guest ever. So you have that distinction.
That bar is low for next. Yeah, love it.
All right. So you also shared a really interesting comment or napkin, and there's a couple of things going on. We are designed for rest, and designed is in blue. So there's an emphasis on designed, and you've underlined the word rest twice. Why did you share that with me?
Yeah, you know what? It's something that's been really resonating with me lately, and trying to really be intentional with that. I've been living with the words intentional over default for a long time, and that's where we're designed for rest. It's meant to be emphasized because I think a lot of times people, it's the last thing to come, the first thing to go. We've got this badge of honor for pushing through and just continuing to work and continuing to push harder and harder and harder at the expense of ourselves, thinking that we can be more productive, thinking that we've just got to keep going. And this hustle culture is absolutely destroying our sense of self, our ability to get back to baseline. We are designed as human beings to rest. And when we rest, we actually renew, we re-energize, and we come back ready to take on more. And yet people just push through, thinking I got to do this. But we're doing it at a reduced capacity. Right? Mm-hmm. There is research to show that when you're working at fatigue level, you're 70% less productive. So when you're thinking, I got to go, and I got to push through and finish work or whatever, sometimes we all have to. But when we're doing that, we're doing it at less capacity. So we'd be so much better to just pull back and actually rest. So that's why I put designed in blue, just because it's like, we got to emphasize, like, it's not something that it would be nice to have. We are designed for it. We need it.
You
right?
said something really interesting off the cuff as well, and it's it's the last thing to come and the first thing to go. Rest.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, yeah, hustle culture is part of that, but why is it the last thing? Why we do look at rest at like a reward? I'll rest when I'm done. People even say
Yep.
I'll rest when I'm dead, right?
Yeah.
Right. Those are
Yeah.
sayings. Those are badges of honor that entrepreneurs and leaders wear, isn't it?
It is. It is absolutely, and that's the thing is, I think people are so quick to help someone else, and they're so quick to step in to pick up the pieces for other people when they need it and be there for other people. But the idea of taking care of themselves and taking what they need comes last. Right? It's hard. I think oftentimes we feel guilty for taking rest, and I want to specify the reason I underline rest twice is because to me, rest is different than sleep. We can do a lot of conversation and all the research on sleep and the value of sleep. But to me, rest is different. Rest are those intentional things that we're doing while we're awake that bring us renewal and bring us joy. It's not your doomsday scroll on Netflix, with Instagram. It's not sleep. It's the things that you're intentionally doing that get you back to baseline, the things that bring you joy, the things that you enjoy spending your time doing. And we all know that when we get busy, the first thing that gets cut is my tennis match, my off-leash walk with my dog, my time sitting on the front porch having a cup of coffee. That's the first thing to go, right? Because we feel like we need to push through. But at the end of the day, those are the things that get us back to renewed state.
I really, first of all, you're very intentional about using the word intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is purposeful time. This is blocked off time. And I imagine that if I were to look at your calendar, wherever it exists, there are blocks of time that you've created for this awakened renewal, this awakened rest, this awake period where you actually do something to refill your buckets. Would I be wrong in saying that?
Partially.
Yeah.
I have one. I have one space that is fully blocked off as my time, and it's first thing in the morning. It's new. I only started doing this a few months ago. I wake up at the same time every morning, and before I check my phone, before I check my work, all the things that are going to stress me out and frustrate me, and all the things, I grab a cup of coffee and I take a walk around my block outside. I got beautiful trees around where I live and stuff. So often I do it in my slippers. Just out we go. Let's have some fun. Like start the day with an intentional moment of gratitude, enjoy the sunshine, just slow life down before we get started. And neighbors love it when they see me with a cup of coffee and my slippers walking around the block. But that's my one time that's like, it starts me off right. But the rest of it, I don't necessarily want to be prescriptive with it, that this is my rest time. Like your body will tell you when you need it. And there's
Mhm.
times when it's like, no, I just need to be intentional and focused in that way that, it's okay to have times during your day where you rest. Can I give you a stat? There's um,
Absolutely.
there's a stat to show that 53% of people don't find time or take time within their week to rest. They either because they feel guilty, because they're overcommitted. How often are you like, hey, I'd love to get out and go golfing, or I'd love to go for a bike ride, which is what your form of rest might be, but you feel guilty leaving, your partner with the kids, or you feel guilty leaving chores undone at home, and so you end up just pushing through and doing it and skipping those things. But those are the things that actually allow us to be our best selves for the people we care about. And so, rather than saying, feel guilty and not doing it, we need to lean into that. Right. And there's research to show that when you don't take that rest, it leads to chronic fatigue. And as I said, when you're chronically fatigued, that's when you're less productive and less able. And it leads down the roads towards burnout and anxiety and stress and all those things, right?
Yeah, I want to come back to chronic fatigue in a second.
Hmm.
And you talked about earlier, that we're 70% less productive when working at a fatigue level. So I think that's an important subject, and I want to come back to that. But you also said something just now that I think it's really interesting, and I wonder about this. You said my body will tell me when I need to rest,
Yeah.
but being sensitive to that and acting on it, right? Like noticing it and acting on it is not something we do naturally, because you said it's the last thing to come and the first thing to go. So those two things sort of work against each other a little bit if we just do it by default. So you're intentional about this. Tell me about how you learned to listen to your body.
The hard way.
Right.
Right? I mean, I think we've all had our experiences of burnout and stress and exhaustion and all those things. And I think we're living life beyond our capacity. Life is really complex, whether it be because we're, pushing more on our plate through work, through home, caring for loved ones, trying to push all those things in. Life's complex and it's busy. And we do have a bandwidth. Right. And so, our body has hormones, and going back to like simple junior high science, between the serotonin and the dopamine that release when we do things for ourselves, get out in nature and give us that experience that brings us back to baseline, or the reward center when we're trying to check things off a to-do list. We can go on and on about all the oxytocin as well and the endorphins. But really what it comes down to is when you're feeling elevated and stressed, you got to get yourself back to baseline. Right. And so have you ever been in that space where you're like, I got a million and one things to do. My to-do list is the length of my arm, and all I really need to do is check something off my list. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Right. But then you start checking things off the list, you get a little bit of momentum. You're like, okay, this is awesome. I'm feeling it again, feeling great. Right. And so it's creating space and room for that complexity in our lives. I think we need to be intentional about slowing ourselves down and asking, why am I as busy as I am? Why am I pushing those things? Chaos is happening in our life. Complexity is coming whether we like it or not. But if we don't have room for it, that's the stuff that pushes you over the edge, right?
Mm-hmm. So again, I want to push back a little bit and go back to how you said that you learned it the hard way, right?
Yeah.
Those were the terms that you used. So
Yeah.
I will assume that it didn't come naturally and you hit a wall
No.
at some point, right?
Sure did.
So
Sure did.
what did that look like for you, and how did you apply the lessons from that?
I mean, yeah, I was the high achiever. I was, my first career was in the education sector. I was a principal by the age of 29. I was in executive work by the age of 34. High level achiever, constantly pushing through, and I had a mentality of I got this. Right. I always got this. And so I keep pushing through. No problem. I've always had this before. Why would this time be any different? We had a pretty significant experience in our family that shifted our mindset. And if you don't mind me sharing, it's a doozy. So it was in the height of COVID, which everybody had their time. Had young kids, 5 and a 3-year-old, and we decided, my wife and I wanted to take them skating. And so, out we go to the outdoor rink, having a great time. And in this space, we're actually doing pretty well as a family. We're thriving. We're doing okay, right? Instantly, we realized that health is fragile. My wife fell and she broke both of her wrists,
Oh my gosh.
right? Right. And so, like, imagine what you do at any point in time during the day or night, and now you can't do them and you need help to do them. And so, immediately trying to step in to be a hero father, hero husband, while trying to maintain myself as a hero employee. I got this. And so trying to take care of the family, trying to navigate all that sphere in the height of COVID with not a lot of support in the home, I neglected to take care of myself as well. And so I neglected the pain that was in my stomach, thinking, yeah, it's an ulcer or whatever. I can push through, take some Tums and go to bed. It wasn't. It was appendicitis, and it had gone so bad beyond septic that by the time I got to the hospital, the doctor had said, like, I had 90 minutes and could have been incredibly serious or
Fatal.
terminal. Yeah. Right. And so hard to say that word actually, but it's like I almost pushed myself to the point of no return because I was trying to say I got this. But how often do people do that? Just push and push and push, thinking you'll be okay until you're not. Right. So it was in that time that for us, I realized, like, holy, we need to recalibrate and rethink about how we're doing things. Because hopefully nobody goes through that experience, but complexity comes for all of us at different points in time, and we need room for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really, an interesting metaphor that you got that feeling in your gut, right? I mean, there was a
Yeah.
feeling in your gut that something was wrong that you ignored.
Yeah.
And isn't it true for all of us, for many of us, that we do that? We ignore that feeling in our gut. Yours was physical, it was literal. But for a lot of us, it's metaphorical, that we ignore that feeling in our gut and push through, challenge it. So what are you suggesting that we need to do? You say make room for complexity, and that's an interesting phrase, but how do we do that? What did you learn
Yeah.
to do from this experience?
I think we fill our lives. And I think how often do you get up and you splash back a coffee, you head off to work, take the kids to daycare, meeting, and then you get home, they got to take the kids to activities. And before you know it, you hit the pillow and you're like, what just happened? I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a different way of doing it. Let's be intentional in how we design our world so that it's not so tightly packed that we don't have room for those spaces. And taking the time intentionally. That's why I say we're designed for rest. Taking the time intentionally to build in time for yourself rather than just hoping you find it along the way. Right?
Yeah. And
Those
you
kind of
de-risk it
things.
by starting your day that way, in your case.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, right. There's the book Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. He talks about it a lot, and then I've built off of that myself. This idea of the nature pyramid. We all know we're supposed to get outside and be active and be, engaged in nature, and that it helps with our vitamin D and our serotonin and all this. But he talks about this idea of the 25-3 rule. And so 20 minutes outside every day is the first basis for some significant health improvements. We're talking lower cortisol, better sleep, better vitamin D absorption, regulated heart rate. And it's like, go for a walk around the block, take your dog out, go for a bike ride, do some gardening, or sit on your porch and have a coffee, 20 minutes outside. We can all do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then talks about the idea of 5 hours once a month, right? So take a Saturday and go for a bike ride in the river valley, or go paddle boarding, or go camping, that kind of a simple thing. Like, try to take some time and be intentional in being outdoors, maybe like skiing, maybe like swimming, whatever. And then 3 is the 3 days off grid once a year, right? And so that was a little harder, but it talks about greater cognitive restoration, which is essentially giving your brain a break, right? And all of these health benefits that come from it. And I loved hearing this because it puts parameters around it. Instead of get outside, it's like, take 20 minutes and you'll improve, right? That's easy.
Yeah. And it is easy. I mean, I know in my case, my 20 minutes outside, and I'm lots of neuroscientists are talking about the value of this. Huberman talks about it. Everybody talks about the value of this 20 minutes outside. And it's a short walk in the morning and the afternoon with the dogs. It gets me outside guaranteed every single day. So I felt that value. I like this 5 hours once a month. And this is, again, 5 hours once a month outside and 3 days off grid. So what does off grid mean in this sense? What does that really mean?
Go camping, right? Like, do something like that. Go to a national park, stay in a hotel, but just actually don't bring your phone, don't bring your laptop, and go for a hike, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that if you can. Anything where you're intentionally engaging with the outdoors. Right. And so it doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be just, whether it's camping or fishing, hiking, or, biking trips with friends for a few days, whatever it be, to get you outside, away from the busyness and pull that's within your space. And I should say, like, that 20 minutes outside, how often do you go for a walk outside, but you're scrolling your phone the whole time? That completely negates the whole process. Right. Instead, what I would suggest is to do a 5 senses walk. Sounds kind of hokey, but it works. Right. So start your walk by saying, okay, what can I see? And take 2 minutes and just focus on what you see around you. Right. Take a look at the trees, take a look at the leaves. Who's playing outside? Maybe there's an airplane flying overhead. What do you see? Then you move on to, what do you hear? Right? Listen to the kids playing, listen to the crunch of the snow under your feet, if that's a thing, or the rain that's falling, right? Then what do you smell, right? Take the time, walk your way through the senses. And at the end, for what do you taste? Swing by your favorite coffee shop and actually just enjoy a coffee rather than pound one back on your way to work. Like, taste it, enjoy it, savor it. What it does is it gets you in this mindful space where you're outside of the chaos of your day, you're outside of all the other busyness, and you're just giving yourself a minute to focus.
Activating 5 senses is really powerful as a tool, and I think if somebody is listening right now, and if it's not something that they can feel like, I can't go for a walk right now, you could probably bring that into any moment, couldn't you? You could just take that moment right here, and think about, as you're listening to the podcast, what do you see? What do you hear? Hopefully our voices. And what do you smell? What do you feel and what do you taste? I think those are really powerful. That's a really powerful tool. I want to come back to something that you talked about. And this is a really dramatic number. We are 70% less productive when working at a fatigue level, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then you combined it with the fact that most of us are working from some level of fatigue as it is, and this chronic level of fatigue. So somewhere listening right now, people are saying, "Great, I get it. I'm gassed."
You
Thank
win.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you very much. I know I'm gassed, but what do I do about it? I'm trying and I can't get anywhere. So you're talking about design under default. You're talking about intentional things that can move you forward. But what's something, you've given us this great five senses walk, but how long do we have to work at this to get rid of chronic fatigue?
Well, that's the thing is like if we're doing enough to keep us at a baseline, right? Then if we're already at a chronic fatigue state, we actually need to do more to get us back down, right? And
Okay.
so there is an element of like it'd be better if we could do it before we get to that point because then you're maintaining before you're having to reinvest that. The reality is if you don't, then I'm sorry, but if we're going to continue pushing ourselves towards burnout, it's going to come. I found out the hard way, and my goal is that it doesn't have to happen for you. Now that said, life's busy, life's tough for everybody. So the idea of like, oh, just take time for you and do all these things, that sounds great, but some people are really pushing just to make it to the end of the day. So it goes back to intention for me. We all have moments where we can redesign the space. So you make it to the end of the day, you got the dishes finally done, the kids are in bed, or just whatever, your day's finally done. And it's so easy just to get horizontal, watch Netflix and scroll whatever social media platform. Instead, go sit on your porch with a cup of tea or something like that and just have silence. Right? Just create space for quiet. But it's more intentional design to that space. Right? When you're with your kids at a soccer game, if that's something that you do, like I do, try and give yourself, don't get on your phone while your kids are watching your game. Maybe you do like 10 minutes of an outdoor workout while they're doing their practice, and then you zero back in and just watch your kid. Right? It's trying to think about in that moment when I'm driving home, hey, turn on the Paper Napkin Wisdom podcast, but after that's done, right, turn it off and just have a moment to yourself instead of filling it with noise.
Right. And I think that because you say we're designed for rest, right? So once we start to play with that idea, won't we gravitate to the things that work best for us?
Okay, so back to the sleep thing that I talked about where I wake up and I go for my walk in my slippers. I'm a habitual snoozer. Like for years, I would wake up and crank that snooze button 5-10 times. And it hit me. That's like, if my body doesn't know when I'm waking up, then I'm waking up exhausted. And it's like, wake up, just kidding, go back to bed. Wake up, just kidding, go back to bed. And so I thought, okay, for a moment, I'm going to try something different and just test it. So I set the alarm for the same time every day. I now wake up 5 minutes before my alarm every day. I don't even need it anymore, which is weird. But it's great, and then up I go. My coffee's pre-made. That's an intentional step where, this morning's me is thankful that last night's me pre-made the coffee. And then off I go. And now it started out as, just get outside and take 2 minutes. And now I thrive off of that. And what's awesome is even this morning, my daughter, she's 10, and she said, Dad, can I come with you? Absolutely. Right. And now she's like, Dad, this is amazing. Like, check out the flowers. And like, you saw our neighbor. And so she's now engaging in that too. So it builds. You're right. Once you start, it builds momentum.
Right. And I think we're also designed to make it better, right? When you've improved how you rest, that design model that you've created for yourself has improved because you've built momentum around it. You've got a taste for it, and you are adding things to it that work for you, right? And
yeah, and I think
we all
one
do.
of the things to stress is like, what is rest? And so for me, like two things that I love to do for rest. One of them is take my dog to the off leash. right? And
Mhm.
so that's not sleep. We're not talking about sleep. We're talking about things that get you back to baseline and bring renewal. So when I take my dog to the off leash, I'm outside, I'm in nature, I'm kind of having a moment just to myself. It's where most of my great ideas for my speaking engagements come from. But I'm watching her run around in the trees and play with the other dogs, and it's just kind of like a happy moment for me, right?
Mhm.
So that's rest. For me, another one is tennis. I love playing tennis. You get to get against another partner and playing against someone. There's strategy to it. If you're frustrated, just crush a serve. Who cares if it goes in or not? All those things. Those are rest because they bring me more energy when I'm finished than when I started.
I,
So
I, I
anyway,
really, I really love that. I remember a billion years ago, there was a paper napkin that was given to me by Michael Walsh, and Michael Walsh talks about that we all have four energy buckets, and we can fill them up one at a time, or we can fill them all up at four. We can do them all at the same time. And there's a physical bucket, there's a mental bucket, there's an emotional bucket, and there's a spiritual bucket.
yeah.
And the high value activities that we engage in fill all four simultaneously.
Well, I
And he
love
gave this
that.
great example of, yeah, I could run in the treadmill in my basement and that'll refill my physical bucket, but I take that run outside and I'm filling all four of my buckets.
Yeah.
And you just identified, you could take your dog out to the off leash and that fills all four of your buckets
Well,
because,
that's a great way to put it. I like
right?
that.
As opposed to just filling one of them. So we can each find those high value activities that fill all of our buckets simultaneously. And we can design for that. We can build for that. And that's what you call rest. You say that is truly where we rest because we're refilling our buckets, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think also sometimes people put pressure around those things where it's like, "Oh, I got to get my rest in. And then it becomes a thing in itself. Life is
Mhm.
hard. Life's complex. And there are days where it's like, I'd love to get to the off leash and there is no time. That is okay. But the reality is that when you cancel those things, right, then your baseline for your stress response, your anxiety, the fight, flight, freeze, all that, it goes higher. And you just have to recognize that. If it's like, okay, for one day, I gotta not do something for myself and bring myself higher, okay. You just have to not allow that to compound upon itself. You got to get your time in to bring yourself back to baseline.
I mean, I think that's a huge part of this gift, and I think it's amazing that you've made this such an intentional part. You've taken your own lessons, have made this a part of what you're sharing with the world. Listen, somewhere out there right now, there's somebody who's just struggling with this idea, doesn't know where to get started, and you've given them the five senses, and the five senses walk. We've talked about energy buckets, and you've even talked about your own morning routine. What's something that and you talked about it as a possibility right now. What's something that people could do right now, right here, that they could start this journey and build rest into their day?
You know what? I think it's unique to everyone in that we all have different ways that we do find ourselves grounded and reconnected. I would say take the thing that brings you the most joy, or take the thing that you enjoy, like that brings you happiness along the way throughout your day, and start it in small doses. So, for example, for some people, that's gardening. Like, okay,
Mhm.
great, just take 5 minutes and go garden, and then come back in. No pressure, 5 minutes, and just see what that does for you. Right. For my wife, for her, she needs that time to herself to really kind of reground herself. She'll take a cup of tea and a book upstairs into the bedroom, shut the door, and it's like her time. Whether it's a magazine or a book, she's having a cup of tea. She needs time to herself. And she knows that. That's how she feels it. And she engages in that way. Let me tell you, if you open up the door, someone better be dying because that is her time. Right.
Right,
So,
right.
but like, it doesn't have to be anything heroic or anything crazy. Just whatever it is for you that gets you back to baseline. Stop putting it aside. There's a really cool quote I'd love to put forward. It's don't wait till you're thirsty to dig your well.
Right.
And I mean, it's a classic proverb, but it's like, don't wait until you're burnt out, stressed, and exhausted to start taking care of yourself, right? You got to do it before. Um, Invest in yourself, because that way you are your best self for the people, for the jobs, for the work, for yourself along the way.
And if you are burned out, if you're listening to this right now and you are burned out and you're thinking, oh, yeah, sure, but I am thirsty and I am tired and I am this, then yeah, the best time to do this may have been before, but the next best time is right now. And I think
Bingo.
that's a really, really powerful takeaway. Stephen, thank you for joining me. There is one thing that I want to ask you for.
Yeah,
At
sure.
the end of every episode this season, we've been sort of doing a shout out to a former Paper Napkin Wisdom guest. His name was John Rulin. He was on the show 11 years ago, and he shared with us a great sentiment, which is what you appreciate appreciates. And that sounds really aligned with the message that you've just shared here. But his message was, when you appreciate people, when you give love to people, they rise. And so we've been asking our guests to end each episode with a moment of gratitude for someone
Yeah.
who they can appreciate along the way. Who would you like to shout out?
Yeah, I'd happily shout out Mike Schoenberger. He's the CEO of Sunco Communication and Installation based in Edmonton. He and I have connected recently and had some really great heart dialogues where it's like, let's just open up our minds to the possibility of authentic connections and the idea that you're put in a place for a reason and that you can then lift each other up. And so part of it, I get a lot of joy, and I know Mike does as well, from being able to really just put someone in a place to thrive. And if I can help you, if I can lift you up, great. So he and I have been back and forth doing that, connecting in that way. And it's been really awesome to see how we've been able to support each other in that. He's doing some great things with his organization in terms of helping the wellness in their space. And so, yeah, I'd like to do a shout out to Mike.
Yeah, not often do I get the opportunity to join in someone's shout out because I would know the person. In this case, I know Mike very well as well. He's a dear friend. And if you don't know him, reach out to him because he's a wonderful, wonderful soul. And one thing you can say about Mike is he'll make time for you because he is designed for rest and he understands what it means to lift where he stands. And that's a great shout out. Thank you, Stephen.
Right back at you. Thanks for the time.
Stephen, thank you for bringing so much clarity and calm to a conversation most of us try to outrun. Your work shows leaders what happens when we design our days on purpose, and we're grateful. Here's some quick takeaways that you can use starting right now. Rest isn't sleep. As you notice the difference, you may find yourself resetting during the day so your best thinking returns. Baseline before breakthrough. When you check your energy at set times, you'll often discover the next smart move comes after a short reset. Intention beats intensity. Small, deliberate pauses compound more than occasional heroics. Leaders set the wellness weather. When you model recovery, your team gives you better decisions and tells the truth about capacity. Design the culture. When recovery is scheduled and not earned, performance gets lighter and more sustainable. Here's your 24-hour challenge. Would you rather schedule your first reset before your morning meeting or right after lunch? Either way, put a 3-2-1 reset on your calendar for tomorrow. 3 micro pauses, 2 mindful breaths before each meeting, and 1 screen-free lunch. Notice what changes. If this episode sparks something, subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with one person who's pushing too hard and could use a better way. It helps leaders find these conversations. Now it's your turn. Grab a napkin and jot the single shift that you'll make this week and post it with the hashtag #PaperNapkinWisdom. What's the one moment in your day where adding a tiny reset would create the biggest result? Until next time, keep turning small ideas into big results and make it a great day.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience and their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn ads.com today,